Hello and welcome to the Leafs Room podcast. My name is Jori. I'm joined by Ethan and Stuart as we recap tonight's 3-1 Leafs victory over the Winnipeg Jets. There we go, that took a couple tries. The Maple Leafs look a lot better today. Ethan, what did you think of their game today?
I thought they looked really good. They were buzzing around. Good forecheck from the big names like Tavares, like the other games prior to this. Forechecking, getting pucks in deep and chasing them, hitting the body well. I thought Nylander looked really good and was getting pucks towards the high danger areas. And I thought that line, even with VC, looked really good tonight.
Yeah, that line and the two first lines, the Matthews line, the Tavares line, both were outstanding tonight, I think. We were saying it kind of with the Ottawa Senators game. The Winnipeg Jets are not a great defensive team. At least they weren't last year. They're in a lot of ways carried by Connor Hellebuck. So to see the Leafs really take it to them this evening, really encouraging, I think, at least in my view.
Yeah, I thought from what I saw tonight, I saw a much more concerted effort on both ends of the ice. Apart from that last little bit of the third period where they looked like they were backing up a little bit on their heels and letting the pace of the game and the momentum shift. From what you were saying, they were dominating heavily in the early going. I like what I saw from Freddie. He needed a bounce back game tonight, and he looked confident. He looked strong in there, and to me, that was probably the most important thing tonight to take from this game, was that he regained his form and may probably regain the confidence of the Leaf Nation fan base who were jumping like in droves off the bandwagon.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say Leafs Nation. I'd maybe narrow that down a little bit to maybe your end of Leafs Nation. You were the one kind of freaking out about the goalie. No, Freddie was really good. He was the second star tonight. I thought he was impressive when called upon, especially right at the end of the game. They were on their heels. During the second period, it was all Leafs. That's the fun part of the game that I really want to talk about. I saw a tweet that the Tavares, Nylander, VC line had like a 92% Corsi. I mentioned it to you guys. That line in particular was just taking it to them. And then Hyman, I saw, had like 10 shots halfway through the game. I don't know how many shots he finished with, but he had a really big game. He had an opportunity to score right there at the end. He was really good. Obviously Marner with 2 goals, obviously an empty netter, but he was really important tonight. The big guys came to play today, which is what they really need. And on the defensive side of the puck, I thought the Leafs were really tidy, especially for that first 2 periods. They got a little sloppy towards the end, but it was a really impressive outing, I think, really across the board. It's hard to draw too many negatives, I guess, from tonight's game. Do you think maybe the defense, towards the end, obviously, they kind of got a little bit leaky. Do you think that's...
They did, but they also made a couple of outstanding plays with shot blocks by Hull and Brody towards the end there. I actually thought it was a solid effort to hold the fort, and from that standpoint, I didn't mind the defensive effort. I wanted to close the book on the Freddie comment just to defend one thing. I just wanted to say that I wasn't necessarily jumping off the bandwagon per se. I wanted to say that the evidence from those first 2 games and from what I saw from Campbell pointed to the fact that there was an issue. There was something going on. They must have worked on it in practice or whatever. And I thought Campbell's effort was excellent. So I wasn't trying to stoke the fires, but I think there was reason to believe that Freddie was off his game. And Campbell was looking pretty good the one game he played and the scrimmage. So I wasn't afraid to jump in and say that maybe they should give him a chance. The other comment I wanted to make, then I want to pass it over to Ethan for his thoughts, is the thing that I saw in the short period of time that the second half of the game tonight, the speed. This is what wins the Leafs games. Their team speed, the way they move that puck, the way that they're passing the puck. It was on display tonight in a big way with those first 2 lines. If they can continue that, they can beat anybody. If they can just keep moving that puck at breakneck speed like they did tonight.
Yeah, keeping along the lines of Freddie, I thought towards the beginning, he wasn't really faced with that many shots. I think he had around 9 shots after the first or something. Not really faced with anything high danger or anything at all, for that matter. But he ended up facing around 30 shots, and I thought he had a really good bounce-back performance tonight, and he was very steady. Steady Freddy.
Yeah, Steady Freddy.
Steady Freddy, yeah.
The other thing, and just to your Freddy point as well, and then we can maybe leave the goalie controversy, because I don't think that's necessarily the story of the game, is the Freddy versus Campbell. Them giving Freddy the day off sort of thing. When they made Aaron Dell, who rest in peace, now a New Jersey Devil. With Aaron Dell dressing as the backup for the Jack Campbell game, gave Freddie a chance, I think, to really reset. Which, as much as I'm of the mind that you really want quantifiable things as evidence for maybe why a player did well or whatever it may be, it would be pretty logical if that was a huge reason why Freddie was able to come back and be really effective tonight, is because he was able to kind of reset and kind of.
You make a good point.
Yeah.
Probably someone spoke to him, and maybe I don't know what the Leafs coaching staff consists of, but I'm sure, like any professional franchise, and with all the money the Leafs have, I'm sure they spend a lot of time with conditioning coaches as far as mental conditioning. And I'm sure Freddie, it looked like a mental thing. He was just out of place. He was just out of sorts. He definitely has the tools to be a top flight goalie, and he's proven it. But he did just looked off his game. So probably your point is very accurate, Jori, that he probably did need that time to sit back, maybe review some game film, and get his head in the right space, and realize that, hey, it's a short season. I gotta tighten up. I gotta work. Feel confident and get back out there. And he showed it tonight. He really showed it.
Yeah, there's almost something funny about me saying what I'm going to say. You mentioned their speed was a really big thing, and this is almost like you and I. So I'm obviously the very analytics-minded kind of. I think I lean a lot more analytics, whereas you maybe lean a lot more heavy. But I really think that it was the Leafs playing heavy was one of the reasons they were really successful today. Something that comes to mind, and obviously it's one image that pops in my head, but I'm certain that there's more examples of it. Nylander was fending a lot of guys off. I thought that Jumbo was getting involved below the goal line. There were a couple times where the Leafs were engaged along the boards and winning puck battles, and I think that the Leafs, there's never really much of a question in the way of the Leafs north-south game, but I think that in today's game, or rather tonight's game, I should say, they showed that they can play the kind of game they need to play. Obviously, they have their game, but they have the tools, they have the elements kind of within, I guess you could say, that they can certainly grind along the boards if need be, I think. But that was at least kind of my observation. So the first period was pretty low event. The second period was really kind of, I think, and Ethan and I were discussing this as the period was going on. That was, like, to me, almost a perfect period for the Leafs. It's just a shame that they gave up the late goal.
Yeah, I agree. It was all Leafs that period. They were in the zone, it felt like more than 75% of the time. They had around 75% of the shots.
Yeah, that was that second period was really important, I think, for the Leafs. The third period is kind of the little, I wouldn't call it a black mark necessarily, but you would hope maybe that they clean up kind of the because there were a couple of instances there where Muzzin took the penalty and the PK, they bent but didn't break.
That's something the Leafs have had problems with, though, is not playing 3 good, consistent, solid periods of hockey. And, it didn't come back to bite them tonight, but they have to watch it, because that's the kind of thing where if they take their foot off the pedal, to Austin Matthews' point from the first Ottawa game this season, they're going to be in trouble. They're a team that, when they play the game that they're supposed to play, nobody can play with them. But if they don't concentrate on some of the small stuff, not just the skill, but taking guys, they're making sure their matchups, their defensive matchups and so on and so forth. If they don't pay attention to those details, anybody can beat them on any given night. You saw what Ottawa was, a weak team, and gave them a lot of trouble over those 2 games because I think their attention to detail wasn't as good as it was tonight. Obviously tonight was a much, much better effort.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I mean, it is, to some extent, it is going to be about details with this team, and they're really good. Something else I want to touch on, and you, again, Ethan, you'll have more to say about this. Mikko Lehtinen made his NHL debut tonight. Didn't log that many minutes, especially was not on towards the end of the game. We saw the dermatologist pair at the end there, Dermot and Hall. We saw a little bit of Lehtinen with Bogosian there in the third period. He was used sparingly. He got some power play 2 time. I don't think they scored. Did they? I think Tavares' goal was a power play goal, but was not with Lehtinen on the ice, I believe. Might be wrong with that. Anyways, Lettinen's first game, what'd you think?
I thought he was really good. His first shift, he came up buzzing. He was positioned very well. He was getting, keeping pucks away from the high danger areas, and yeah.
Yeah, no, he was definitely good. I mean, it's a lot harder to judge a defenseman than it is a forward. The way that we were raving about Nick Robertson, it's a little bit harder to do that about Lehtinen, just because, the best defenseman
you don't notice.
Exactly. The idea is you don't notice them. The idea is that they're out there quietly. Speaking of quiet defensemen, I think this was TJ Brodie's best game as a Leaf. I thought that, he had a couple shot blocks which are more loud than the quiet defenseman, but I thought that, when called upon, on the PK there, but also towards the end of the game, he was doing a good job maintaining possession, breaking out with the puck. It's, again, you can't reiterate this enough, it's something that Morgan Rielly hasn't had access to in his history of partners.
I noticed that the one shift I noticed was when they were trying to fend them off at the end, and he got possession behind his net, and he I love the way he carries the puck. He is an elite skater and puck handler, and you know what? When you've got that skill set, he might not be the strongest defenseman boxing guys out, and he's going to get burned. You can clearly see the sample size that we've seen that there's going to be some challenges in that regard. But when pucks get into trouble in their zone and they're loose, and as long as they get on them, he's good at getting pucks out of the zone and getting things up and transitioning very, very well. I love that part of his game, and it brings an element that you said Morgan Rielly has not had that as a partner, not even close. So, it's good to see. I still think their games are similar, and it might not long term be in the best interest of the team to have them together. But I definitely agree with you. It was his best game by a lot, because I think he's been trying to get a feel and trying to get find his way and find his position with the team. And tonight he definitely showed some of those skills on display. I thought he was good.
Yeah, for sure. And because of the 7 defensemen, they kind of cycled through. I think briefly.
Which made, like you said, for some interesting pairs.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, though, I think we briefly saw a Brodie-Muzzin pair. We definitely saw a Dermott-Riley pair. I recall seeing that. Again, the Dermott-Hall pair we saw. There was a good bit of kind of mixing and matching, which even beyond the utility within the game, it's almost like that with the Raptors, for example. They are, at least last season, I again have not been watching them nearly as much this season, but they're known to experiment. They're known to kind of play with their lineup, and for the Leafs, having a 7D thing kind of gives them the opportunity to shuffle and see, this pairing works, this pairing doesn't work. Again, very small sample size, so you don't want to draw huge conclusions from one game, especially when it's against the Winnipeg Jets, who are probably bottom tier of this division, I would say. If I were to give the Canadian division kind of tiers, I'd say probably Leafs, Habs, then maybe the Alberta teams, and then then you're looking at maybe Vancouver, Winnipeg.
So maybe just answer me one question. When did Winnipeg all of a sudden, was it that off season 2 years ago when they lost all the defensemen?
Yeah, more or less.
They were considered a real top tier team. So what? They still have the same goalie. They still have all the forwards, just about, right? If anything, they've fortified it back again with Stastny coming back, although he's not the guy who maybe once was. But why is this team, in your estimation, an also ran in this division? I would have thought they would have been a contender.
Like, I don't know, maybe I'm being too harsh on them, but it's really, their defense is kind of like, it's imploded in a lot of ways. I mean, Trouba's gone, Bufflin's gone,
Myers.
Tyler Myers is gone. There's obviously there's more names, but they and some of these guys aren't necessarily like huge impact guys. For example, Tyler Myers was maybe more of a passenger in his time with the Jets. But the thing is that their defense is really just, it's over time, just one piece is stripped away, another piece is stripped away, another piece is stripped away. You know, they lose Myers to free agency, so they get nothing for him. You know, Bufflin retires, so they get nothing for him. And piece by piece by piece, and now they're replacing them with guys like Sammy Niku, who destroyed the AHL, but is having trouble taking the leap. Or another guy is that maybe
Pionk, I don't know much about him.
he's actually one of the better defensemen from what I
Yeah.
understand. Well, point production wise, I don't know if his actual underlying numbers. They, I think, are a little more sketchy. Although, for all I know, he could actually be really impactful. But I don't recall him being kind of the true number
Is he
one.
a recent draft pick?
No, they just traded for him for Trouba last
Oh,
season.
I see.
Yeah, that he was the return from the Rangers.
And
so.
Bufflin, wasn't that up in the air? What happened with that? I thought he was maybe coming back.
No, it just nothing came of it.
He just retired?
He just retired. He just kind
Really?
of was like, yeah, I'm good, thanks guys, it's been real, peace.
Really?
He was like, he's done.
I thought he was coming back somewhere. That's really weird.
No, I think he ended up just retiring. We talked a lot about the defensemen.
I would like to talk about Aaron Dell, actually.
Oh, okay, go for it.
Yeah, Freddie had a good game, and I think even before, like, when he was having all these garbage games, whatever, he was going to be the starter, Cam was going to be the backup, whatever. But how do you think losing Dell, like, he didn't really look all that good in the scrimmage, but it's a scrimmage, mind you. Like, do you think that's, like, huge that they lost him to waivers, or how do you feel about it?
I want to make a really quick comment to say that I read something in one of the Leaf groups I'm in that basically said, like, cool your heels, don't freak out, he was crap, right? It's not as bad as the Edmonton situation. So Leaf fans should not freak out. And I kind of agree. I on one hand, it would have been nice to have him as insurance, yes. On the other hand, if, and we've said this before, if you have to count on a Hutchinson or a Dell because of an injury or two, you're screwed. It's as simple as that. If it gets down to that far in your depth, you're in trouble.
I think Dell's more, like, capable than Hutchinson,
I
though.
won't argue with you there, but I think both of them, we would be in a perilous situation if we want to make the playoffs with riding either of those guys. So to me, I don't see it as a total panic that he's gone. I don't think it's a huge loss. I do think it would be good if at some point we could get somebody out of the scrap heap from somewhere else, perhaps, that's better than him. I don't think that's going to happen, but that's just my 2 cents worth. But go ahead. What do you guys? What are your thoughts? You're thinking, Ethan? You think that it's a bad move that they let him go?
Well, they had to do what they had to do, but I don't know. It's just like it just sucks because like you don't want to have to rely on Michael Hutchinson when you have literally past experience as early as last season, knowing that you can't rely on him like whatsoever.
Yeah, he was a star on Colorado though, wasn't he?
Yeah, he won a conference final game with them. He's a conference finals winning goalie, Michael
Woo!
Hutchinson.
Yeah, no, his best days are that 1 year in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
Boy, 1 year, one hit wonder.
Yeah. Here's the reality of it. I think is that the reason that the third goalie is so big this year is because of COVID. I think without COVID, it's not even on your radar. Obviously, there was a couple years back when they had Picard as well as their third guy, and they had McElhinney as their backup, and
They waived both of them.
well, they ended up losing both of them. Well, it did and it didn't. I mean, obviously, we've kind of seen now that your backup goalie is important, but your backup goalie really shouldn't be making and breaking games. Hutchinson was literally in like the bottom tier of bottom tier goalies, so that's why he was like costing the Leafs games. Oh, excuse me. If they're dealing with a midway kind of goalie like a like like an Aaron Dell, who I will get to, and I actually don't know if you're right about him being garbage. If you're talking about having like Aaron Dell as your backup instead of Michael Hutchinson, the Leafs are pretty comfortably in the playoffs last year. Maybe not like winning the division like top 2 in the division, because that was pretty sealed with Boston and Tampa last year and whatnot. But I don't think they're the 8th seed playing Columbus as the 9th seed. They're probably like the 7 or 6 seed, because you're really only picking up by the way they ran their backup. You're only picking up 5 or 6 points, I think, even.
No, I mean,
Well,
you know what? I mean, he got, what, 2 points or 4 points, if that. I don't even know. I don't think he won a game for them last year.
One memory I have is
I think your goalie's going to get you at least a couple of wins. Go ahead.
I think it was the shootout, or was it overtime versus Montreal?
Yeah.
They could have easily won that, but you have Michael Hutchinson in that.
Yeah. So we're talking a lot about Michael Hutchinson for a guy that didn't even play in the game. But last thing I'll say about Aaron Dell, because it seems like a topic that we're all kind of in agreement on, and as far as the importance. I don't think that Aaron Dell is make or break. I do think he is good. Like he is a very capable NHL backup. I think Jack Campbell's better than him. I mean, Jack Campbell could start for some teams. Campbell in some respects is like a 1B almost, or he's not necessarily like a starter, but he's certainly like kind of in that fringe category. But Dell is like a very comfortable backup. As far as I understand, good production on a really bad Sharks team last year. Outproduced Martin Jones last year, better save percentage. So like he's a good player, and losing him is unfortunate, and especially it's unfortunate because if pray to every god you want that Freddie or Campbell or worse both get COVID. Now you're leaning on Hutch instead of Dell, but that's realistically
Game, set, and match at that point.
Yeah, I think that if you're turning to your third goalie at any point, like you said, something's gone catastrophically wrong for the team. So I don't necessarily.
It's not the craziest notion. I mean, it really isn't, because in a short season, right, you're going to have more injuries because you didn't have a proper training camp. It's compacted. The games, you got 3 games in 4 nights and back-to-backs and all kinds of intense, stuff that would be stretched out under a normal season. And goalies anyway are physically pounded, not pounded in the same way as players, but their bodies take a lot of, and I wouldn't say abuse, but you know what I mean, in terms of stretching to the limits type of thing. And I think that it's not crazy that Jack Campbell or either is going to be without the other at some point this year. I don't think it's crazy, and they certainly can't be hanging with each other during the off games in case one has COVID. That's for sure. They have to keep the hell away from each other if we're gonna have any.
Yeah,
chance.
hopefully Tucker Poolman wasn't in attendance tonight. He's on the Jets, supposedly out with COVID. So allegedly, I don't know, but either way, the Leafs goalie situation, I think tonight instills a lot more.
You feel better.
Yeah, it instills a lot more confidence, I think, in the goaltending situation.
How about that guy? That guy has been awesome.
Well, you're referring to Nylander.
He's your boyfriend, yeah. Billy,
Yeah, Nylander.
Willie Nylander. He's been the guy that's probably, for me, outside of Marner's production, but we expected Marner to produce this year. And I know this is, Jori, you've been saying this for a long time, but just watching him and watching what he does when he has the puck, it's pretty magical. It's different than Matthews, and it's different than Marner. They each have a slight difference to their game, but he brings a lot to the game. But what's helping is that he's playing a little bit more two-way game this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Nylander's looked good. I've been on the Nylander train for a long time. You're well aware of that. I'm pretty confident saying that even if he doesn't take a huge step this year, which early returns are good, and maybe he is going to take a step. Maybe he elevates from that 70-point guy to that 90-point guy, which would be a huge jump for him. It'd be really good for the Leafs. Where was I going with that? I think Nylander's good. I don't think there's any question that Nylander's good, and I think he's been really good this year. He's worked well with Tavares. He worked well with Tavares last year even. But that's what he does. He's just a dynamic player in a lot of ways. He's really good at. He's extraordinarily strong in his edges. He's got a wicked shot. He's got a half decent playmaking abilities. I mean, you hope that he's able to take a huge step because he's certainly got it within him. And he's an important player for this team. I mean, I don't think there's really much question about it.
What about Morgan Riley? What about the offensive? Ethan, have you anything to say about Mo after that big goal the other night? He's been kept off the scoreboard, which is, I've noticed it, and nobody's really been saying much. But do you think, is there any concern there that he's not racking up any points?
Not really. He's a defenseman. I don't really expect him to go out and score 2 goals a night, 4 points a night. Like, you just want him to be a defenseman, basically.
He has a 20-goal, 70-point season. He's not far removed from it, though.
Yeah.
Well, the idea I think is with Riley is because he's historically been great offensively and not so great defensively. You hope maybe bringing in Brody helps him elevate. But being a defenseman, as much of an oxymoron as it's going to sound, being a defenseman is not only about being like good defensively in your own zone. Like if you are keeping the puck in the offensive zone as a defenseman, if you're preventing shot attempts as a defenseman, but the way you go about doing that is having the play be in the offensive zone most of the time,
then you're useful.
Then you're totally useful. Yeah, I got no issue with that.
I think most of them are good at that, with the exception of a guy like Bogosian, right? Most of them seem to have that ability. Maybe Hall's not the all-time best. I mean, Hall has some offensive capabilities too, but.
What's the saying? Defense is the best offense?
Yeah, defense is the best offense. Offense is the best defense. All that. The thing about Hall that I'm sure this is what you don't like, and you didn't like about Gardner either, and I think it's that he likes to get active in the offensive zone, and I think that's not.
But there's a difference because Jake Gardner had the ability, although he definitely didn't have it between the years. He had the ability to make up for his. He had the ability to make up for his gaffes with his elite skating. Justin Hall does not have that ability. He can go deep in the zone like he likes to, where he goes right down the wing.
Yeah, he goes all the way into the corner.
Right, he does that. He's got that move, and he often takes that shot, bad angle shot. He got a goal last year or 2 years ago doing that right from the hash mark or from the goal line or whatever. But the problem with him is he's not a good skater. So going deep like that at your own peril. I don't think he's the guy to be doing that.
It's not that he's a bad skater. I mean, I think he more than makes up for it as far as like cerebrally. I think he's a smart player. He's active with his stick a lot of the time. I think he's good.
Yeah, I don't think his skating's that good. That's just my 2 cents.
He's in a lot of ways he's kind of helped I think a lot by Muzzin, but this year I think Hall's been really effective. My viewing maybe is a little bit kind of skewed because I looked up kind of today. I looked up what their extremely small sample early season Corsi was, and Hall's had a really great start to the season. He's up at like the 65%, like, which is insane.
But is that again? Is it because of Muzzin?
Well, he's got a better Corsi than Muzzin so far, but like referring to Corsi, like with it, I think they have because it's 5-on-5, right? So I think they've got like 30 minutes or like maybe 40 minutes of 5-on-5 time because there's been a lot of obviously power play and penalty kill time that won't be counted towards that kind of whatever stat. Mm-hmm. So it's really small sample size, but in this small sample, I think I'm pretty happy with him. Ethan, so any like big takeaways from the game you think, or?
I'm just happy Freddie's back for now. Hopefully down the road he'll keep up this, but I'm happy he put his best foot forward and he had a really good game tonight.
Yeah, that's
for sure. We needed that. You know, this team's going nowhere without him, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You guys feel the same way?
Yeah, pretty much. You pretty much nailed it. I mean, without the saves, you're not going anywhere.
He's a bit guy, but I just before we close, I wanted your guys' thoughts about the fact Spezza didn't get picked up and that he's back in the lineup. I feel he's a bit of a heart and soul guy that still could have an impact on this team down the road? What do you think, Ethan?
I don't know. He's a fourth liner and he hasn't really done anything so far. It's nice to have him in the locker room probably, and he has some capabilities left in the tank, but I don't think he's anything special. I'm happy no one claimed him and he's still a Maple Leaf, but I don't think it's this huge thing that everyone's making it up to be.
Yeah, no one was going to claim him. So just straight up, he wasn't going to get claimed because he's basically come out and said that he's not playing anywhere except for Toronto. So someone claimed him was going to basically threaten to retire. He was never going anywhere other than Toronto, which to me isn't too shocking.
Well, which is good. I mean, but you want a guy with his loyalties, and you know what I mean. Like I don't know. I have a feeling that guy, at some point this year, it could be in the playoffs, whatever, he's going to be worth his weight in gold. I just have a feeling. Something tells me that he's going to either score a big goal or something's going to happen with him that's going to be very positive in the, whatever final analysis of what this team does this year. I just have a gut feeling. I don't know why. He's not the guy. Maybe during the regular season he won't do a darn thing, but I just have a feeling. I don't know.
Maybe. Any thoughts just as we wrap up on the game? Any kind of big takeaways?
Well, I only saw the second half of the game, but from what I saw, they definitely look like they're firing on all cylinders. Maybe they took the foot off the gas a little towards the end, but overall, decent performance. Listen, they're going to face some tougher competition, and we'll be able to analyze some of those games and see how they do against some of the top flight teams. But against a team, as you classified them as a middle tier team, I think they played, and the result reflected the fact the Leafs are the better team, and they did well.
Well, you want to know when you're going to see them against tougher competition. It's going to be Wednesday.
Edmonton should present some challenges, but I think the blue line, they're not a good team, and between the pipes, not a good team. I think the Leafs can exploit that 100%. I don't see it being a close game.
Yeah, well, hopefully that's how that one ends, as the Maple Leafs take on Connor McDavid on Wednesday. We'll catch you then. Thanks for listening to the Leafs Room Podcast.
The Maple